there! A user who goes on YouTube by the name of Radical Grace Gospel sent me a question video, and his question is this.
My question is, from time to time, the atheist will slip up and not obey those same morals that he or she believes in. When the atheist breaks their own morality, why does that happen? Why do you break your own morals?
And yeah, it is a legit question, because this definitely happens sometimes. We do break our own moral codes, but this happens no matter if you are Christian or atheist or whatever. For instance, sometimes people cheat on their partners, even if according to their own moral code they know this is wrong. The thing is, by the end of the video he also answers the question himself, from a Christian perspective.
Adam and Eve, rebellion against God's ways. And so my answer is, the reason why human beings behave badly or sinfully is because we have this inherent sinful nature due to our rebellion against God.
But you see, there is a problem even in the very construction of your answer. You say that we have an inherent sinful nature, and you say that this is due to our rebellion against God. Don't you see the logic flaw here? Our rebellion against God cannot be the cause of our sinful nature. Because for our rebellion against God to even occur, we must have had a sinful nature to begin with, which means that God intentionally created us this way. Now this is a bit off topic, but consider the punishment that God inflicts for disobedience. Eternal hellfire. And now consider how many people of this planet are obedient to God in a manner that will get them to heaven. You would have to agree that according to your beliefs, the vast majority of us will end up in hell. So you have an all-powerful being, God, who creates life intentionally, knowing that almost all of it will suffer forever. And you call such being all good and all loving, and you see no conflict in that. Well, my personal opinion is that you are worshipping one nasty monster. But yeah, I digress. Let's go back to the question. I'm not gonna talk about atheists, but about human beings. So, why do people break their own moral codes and sometimes do bad things even if they are generally good people? Speaking in the context of religion, my answer is precisely because there is no intelligent or good force responsible for our creation. We are not designed by a perfect creator, but by nature, which is flawed and unfair. And that's why we are flawed and unfair. You know, what you call our inherent sinful nature? You know, with this question, I'm sure that unintentionally, you are expressing what in my opinion is the biggest problem for the existence of a theistic God. A couple of weeks ago I made a satire video called Jesus Tells It Like It Is, and I received a comment from someone, JesusFreak777, telling me that the video is offensive. But what he and others failed to grasp is that in that video I was addressing in a satirical way the problem of evil. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the core of the argument, which is, why doesn't God stop evil? If he doesn't stop it because he can't, then he's not all powerful. If he doesn't stop it because he doesn't want to, then he's not all good. And if he's not both all good and all powerful, then he's not God. What I want to do here is deal with the main rebuttals that theists have come up to in response to this. Before I get into this, I have to mention that none of their arguments deal with the evils that don't directly affect nor are produced by humans. The evils that are endured by all the other living things. You have animals being eaten alive by other animals. You cannot dismiss this as evil just because it doesn't happen to humans anymore. You have those flies that lay their eggs inside of wounds of mammals, and if the animal doesn't have an open wound, the fly will find another moist place, you know, like the eye. And then the larvae will hatch and eat their way through the eyeball and the optic nerve into the brain, causing the animal a slow, traumatic, agonizing death. Those creatures have no responsibility for the original sin, have no conception of good and evil. So why would God create such horrors? Why torment them like that? I'm really curious what you think about this, but yeah, let's get to the arguments. One argument is that God doesn't interfere in the wrongdoings of man because then we would have no free will. Now, I'm not gonna get into the free will thing because I have a video on this, so you know my opinion, but for the sake of the argument, let's say that we do have free will. In this case, I agree that there would have to be evil in the world. Obviously, we could not make moral choices if we could only choose the good. But this doesn't justify the amount of the evil in the world, and it cannot justify the unequal distribution of it. Surely a wise God could have given us free will, but at the same time limit the amount of the evil we can inflict on others. And I know that some of you think that free will could not exist without murder, rape and child abuse, but I strongly disagree. Take for instance the angels. I mean, according to your beliefs, they must have free will as well. Otherwise, Lucifer would not have been able to rebel against God. Considering how theists say that all sin is equal, we could have been created in such a way to manifest our free will more in the form of a struggle, rather than causing damage on others. Why should a victim of a rape pay the price for somebody else's free will? I mean, we are, after all, talking about a morally flawless creator. By the way, this argument doesn't even come close to address the natural evil that there is in the world. You know, earthquakes, parasites, volcano eruptions, viruses, all that good stuff. Another argument that this time deals with both human and natural evil is that evil must exist in the world, otherwise we would not know what is good and what is bad. Without knowing sorrow, we could not know what happiness is either. This argument fails to work on a practical basis because none of us ever experienced a world with only good in it. None of us have had only happiness in our lives. So saying that without misery we cannot be happy is only speculation. On the other hand, there are some people who only experienced misery. For instance, an infant who is born with severe Harlequin disease, who gets to live only for a couple of weeks and is in constant agonizing pain until he dies. You can clearly see that he is suffering greatly, even though he never experienced non-suffering. Or let's say that somebody takes you and performs some brain surgery on you, wipes out all your memories. You get total amnesia and you remember nothing prior to this moment. And then he tortures you until you die. Do you think that not having recollections of ever being happy will prevent you from feeling the pain, the fear, the terror of being tortured? Yeah, I don't think so either. The point is that if you can experience misery without knowing what happiness is, it's only logical that you can be able to feel happiness and joy without ever experiencing misery. If you're still not convinced, think Adam and Eve. They were happy in the Garden of Eden without knowing what unhappiness is. Another argument is that all the evil in the world is in fact justice. We are all sinners, therefore we deserve everything that happens to us. And with this I also want to address the argument that says God is testing us, because they're really not that different. You know, I always hear theists say that we cannot hold God accountable according to our moral standards. But I think we can. In fact, God being the supreme morality, he should surpass our human moral standards. Let's take a parent, a father, who in order to punish his disobedient child or to test him, will stop feeding him, will allow a neighbor to rape him, will allow another neighbor to kill his pets that he loves in front of his eyes, will do all those terrible things to him. How would we deal with such a parent? We would obviously lock him up for being a sadistic nutcase. And if he was to say that he did all that out of love for his child, we would be even more sickened by the creep. But then you have our Father in Heaven, who allows such things to happen on a daily basis. You have children in third world countries who get to eat once every 4 days and the only water available for them to drink is filthy mud water. You see them dying, starving, infected with parasites, losing their parents to AIDS. And you think this is God's will, and somehow in your mind you think that they deserve it. This is beyond disturbing. Any religion who makes people think like that is a sick religion. And then of course you have the argument that this is God's plan, that everything happens for a reason and that the end game will be worth it, will justify all this. Thy will be done is another way of saying that the ends justify the means, which might be true only if there are no other means to reach that end. Maybe it's just me, but if God cannot accomplish his plan without starvation and cancer and child rape, if this is the best he came up with, that's a pretty stupid God you're worshipping there. You know, I don't believe in his existence, but if I'm wrong, and such God does in fact exist, then he's one fucked up unfit parent, and in no way worthy of praise. Peace.